Hello everyone, my name is Friscilla Siregar. I am from R4G class. How are you all doing today? I hope you are all okay and ready to learn new things. Today we are going to talk about British people and American people. Surely you already know what British people and American people are, right? British people means people who live in Britain or have British nationality. And American people are people who live in America or people who are American national. And let's get straight to the topic. There are 5 differences between British and American people. Beside on my research. Number 1. British humor preferences are dry and indirect. American humor is very loud and in your face. British humor is very much different from American humor and often goes over the head of the American audience. It's not because Americans aren't intelligent enough to get the joke, but because Americans are not nearly as used to being subtle with their humor. A good example of British humor is Monty Python. The British sense of humor tends to be very sarcastic, often using wordplay or cleverly insinuating things instead of saying them outright. On the other hand, American humor tends to be very direct and right in your face. Americans like to tell jokes in such a way that you don't really have to think hard, and generally know right away exactly what is supposed to be funny. Ricky Gervais has also commented that Americans tend to be a lot more positive in general, especially with their comedy. Number 2. Gun ownership is a hug difference that greatly affects the different cultures. One of the most common stereotypes about American support is that we really love our guns. Well, it may not be true that everyone owns a gun, and many people really do only carry them for self-defense. Is it true that America has one of the highest rates of gun ownership in the world, and we tend to be very big on dividing it? You might hear some people advocating for stricter gun control laws, but there are only a teeny portion of people who would actually advocate banning guns entirely. Many people still consider the Constitution practically sacred, and it gives us the right to keep and bear arms. However, in Great Britain, people simply do not own guns or walk about with them. Even the police actually don't have guns, which is something that surprises a lot of tourists who go across the pond to visit. Naturally, this means a much different relationship with the police. People tend not to fear them so much as they do here, because they are not going to be shot. However, there is also more of a relationship of trust that they are able to build up due to said lack of fear. Number 3. Americans had dynasties, whereas the British still love their royal family and its rich history. British people may not worship their royal leaders, and they are certainly fine with criticizing them if they feel it's needed, or sharing gossip about them. However, they also have a certain sense of respect for the office itself. if nothing else than as a rich part of their country's history and tradition. However, Americans, on the other hand, simply do not abide by the idea of royalty. Is it the reason they struck out for America in the first place? For the reason, Americans tend to be very wary of anything that can be considered political dynasty. That means that when you see another Bush or Clinton or Kennedy, people tend to groan and express their distaste for what they feel is hearkening back to the days of royals, even if they would normally tend to vote for someone with that person's beliefs. Americans value having a feeling of freedom, and anything that seems like political legacy reminds them of the day when they were under the control of monarchy. Number 4. Feet in Britain are not unhealthy. They just aren't as worried about straightening or whitening. The most common and ugly stereotype about British people that you will see in American media is that the British have really horrible teeth. This is smoke, especially heard in someone of the early episode of Family Guy, where British teeth are shown to be horrifically mishapen. The truth is that Americans tend to be obsessive, often driven by media, to always look as perfect as possible. Americans tend to have straighter teeth because even lower middle class American parents will go to great lengths to make sure their teens' teeth are perfectly straight. On the other hand, in Great Britain, people tend to not be worried so much about the cosmetic appearance of their teeth. Well, it's starting to catch on a bit more as a trend as the American media is seen more across the pond and more British actors emerge. It is still not the norm to worry as much about having a perfectly straight or real smile. However, this doesn't yet mean that the British don't care about the health of their teeth. The idea that their teeth are bad or that there is anything wrong with them is completely false. In fact, a recent study shows British people actually slightly edging out Americans when it comes to the overall health of their teeth. Americans are just better at making their smile look shiny for the camera. Lastly, number 5. More than half of households in the United Kingdom don't own clothes dryers. In the United States, nearly 80% of households own a dryer for their clothes to go with their washer. While in the UK, most people own a washer, but less than half of households actually use an electric clothes dryer. Of course, some Americans are probably wondering how many people dry their clothes. And the answer is that many people actually still hang a lot of their clothes out to dry. It can actually be quite energy efficient, and while it may rain a lot in Great Britain, the weather is usually not particularly intemperate. On the other hand, in the United States, almost no one hangs their clothes out to dry anymore, and most who would like to try simple do not live in the right climate for it. And in many cases, it's considered so much against social norms in the United States that you might get some pretty weird look for it. And while many in Britannia don't use dryers to save on energy costs, Many Americans know that it's one of the two highest energy sinks in their home, but continue to use it anyway. Even the few people who don't own them generally tend to just take their clothes to a laundromat, which has ones that they can pay to use. Hanging up your clothes to dry is practically unheard of. That's all I can say about British people and American people. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for your attention.